It's now been about 1 week since the Odyssey released, so now it's time to talk about its Oscar predictions. Before I get started, make sure to leave a like as it is free to do so and it does help me out a lot. But just to preface, I'm not going to be predicting any wins in this video. This is only going to be me predicting how many nominations the Odyssey will get for next year's Oscar ceremony. And right now, I'm predicting it to get 14 nominations with a small chance of it getting 15 or 16. So it could break the record. It could break Sanders' record from last year. But for right now, I'm going to stay optimistic and say it's going to get 14 nominations. And we'll start with the biggest one being Best Picture. This is the most likely nomination, of course, because this movie is amazing. It's like top tier. I've already seen it so many times right now. I don't want to say how many times because it is kind of embarrassing, but I've seen it a lot and I'm still seeing it more and more. It's just one of the best movies I think I've seen in IMAX. It is such a great theatrical experience. And yeah, this is easily a lock for a Best Picture nomination because guess what? There's 10 movies that get a Best Picture nomination. And usually all 10 movies aren't that amazing because when I see the Best Picture nominations and nominees every single year, there's always like one or two that I'm like, I'm not really a big fan of those. It's never like all 10 movies are amazing. There's some outliers that aren't that great. But for right now, I think we can all be honest and say The Odyssey is the frontrunner to win Best Picture, because what other frontrunner Oscar movies have come out right now? Project Hail Mary, Obsession, those aren't going to win Best Picture. We still got so many more awards movies to go in the final back half of this year. And I'll talk about Dune Part 3 and its Oscar chances more when that comes out later in the year, but if that movie is as good as it looks, it's going to be so cool to see The Odyssey and Dune Part 3 fight it out next year. Then next up, another lock, we have Best Director, Christopher Nolan. He's becoming a favorite in the Academy, let's just say, after he won his first Best Director Oscar for Oppenheimer. That was a long-deserved win for him. I don't know why it took so long, just like it took a long time for like Martin Scorsese, and who knows how long it'll take for Denis Villeneuve to get a nomination or get a win for his Dune movies. Hopefully it will happen with the next one. But yeah, we all know that Christopher Nolan is getting nominated for this one. And then we have one of our newer categories from last year, which is Best Cast, which is basically Best Ensemble. Yes, The Odyssey is going to get nominated for this one because the cast is flat out amazing. A lot of A-list stars in here. You, of course, have Matt Damon as the, lead actor, but there's so many great supporting actors in here to pull from. I just loved everyone in this cast. And you're probably wondering, is this movie going to get any acting nominations? And for right now, I think we have two locks for acting nominations. The first one being Matt Damon, because he is such a great lead in this movie, and I think on every single rewatch he does get better, especially with his two monologues. The first one being the biggest monologue, which is with the sirens. Then I guess the second one isn't that big of a monologue, but he's basically talking about Troy in the third act and, the second half of the Troy attack, which is a very emotional monologue. So I think Matt Damon can really get a nomination for this one. And even though I'm not talking about wins, I really don't see him winning for this. I think there's going to be so many other stronger nominees in here. I see him being an easy like third or fourth place right now. Then for supporting actress, Anne Hathaway is looking extremely strong. She's having a great year, let's just say. She's in like 5 or 6 movies this year, but this is her Oscar play, I'd say. Mother Mary, that completely flopped. End of Oak Street's not going to be an Oscar play. Verity's not going to be an Oscar play. I think that this is her best chance at an Oscar. And I think that she could really win it here. If Andy Navarrete stays in lead actress, which I think is still crazy, I think Anne Hathaway could easily take supporting actress. Now for supporting actor, this is one that I don't have it locked in for a nomination. I have 3 maybes right here. My 3 maybes are Robert Pattinson, John Leguizamo, and Tom Holland. I think they're all really, really great. I don't know why people are dogging on Tom Holland. I think his performance is one of his best, but I'm not going to predict him. I think he's the lowest here out of these two. Robert Pattinson could be pretty high, but he's, of course, going to be trying to get a nomination for like prime time. I think that's his best bet for next year. So for right here, I'd love to see John Leguizamo get a nomination. I think his performance is so good. This is one of his better performances in the past, like 10 years or so. And I really do feel his emotion here in this movie. If you've seen the movie, you know, in the third act, when, you know, Odysseus is walking up to his hut and he's like, "Where are your watchdogs, old man?" And that's actually after, you know, Eumaeus got attacked. And he's like, "I'm burning their bodies right now." And you feel his emotion. You feel like, don't give me any hope, because he doesn't think Odysseus is returning. And I just loved him here. I think he brings so much emotion to this movie. And even though I don't have him locked in right now, I would love to see him get a nomination. But for right now, I'm just going to say maybe for supporting actor. The screenplay for this movie is also 100% locked in. I think Christopher Nolan usually gets a screenplay nomination for his movies. And then some people might not like how he wrote this movie with like just the dialect that he used, like daddy, father, dad, and all that, and just using, you know, language that we use today. I still think it's easily going to get nominated for screenplay. And then next up, we have all the technical categories, and expect the Odyssey to get nominated in basically every single one of these categories, because if you look at the Odyssey, this is a technical masterpiece. You might not like how the story is told, you might not like the screenplay, you might not like some of the performances, but from a technical viewpoint, this movie is on another level. As I said in one of my reviews, this is like the most real movie you're going to see in theaters for a long time, because it was shot on location. There's minimal VFX, minimal CGI, but there is some visual effects, which is why it's going to get nominated for that. There's a lot of practical work. There's a lot of sets being built here. It is a beautiful movie to look at, which is why it's going to get nominated for cinematography. Hoyte van Hoytema's work on here is just so good. I mean, his scene in Hades is shot so well. I was just in awe of it. And then best editing, the editing here is so good. You know, I forget who edits Christopher Nolan movies. I think it's Jennifer Lame, but she is so good. It just keeps me locked in with how she edits this film. And then, of course, they're going to get nominated for production design and costume design and makeup and hairstyling, because those prosthetics that they used on, you know, some of the sequences here were just crazy. Especially like the pig sequence, because that is basically like pretty much like 99% makeup and prosthetic work. I loved how they filmed that. Some people don't like the costumes, but Agamemnon's costume, oh my god, he looks so cool. And then, of course, as I said before, it's going to get a visual effects nomination, even though there's a minimal amount of CGI in the movie. You're probably asking, where are the visual effects? I didn't see the visual effects. Well, you know how the Cyclops Polyphemus scene is basically like a double in there, and then they used a puppet. Well, they still have to blend some CGI in those sequences to make it look so believable. And then you're going to have small CGI elements probably in the fight scenes that you probably don't see, because they blend it so well. And I do love a movie that can blend its visual effects so well into the movie, into the real world, let's say, that they're actually filming. And then some other visual effects sequences that you have are, of course, the whirlpool scene, because they did, of course, film it with jet skis going in a circle, but then they covered it up and just used that as, you know, an element, and then they covered it up and made it actually a big whirlpool. And then there's a lot of other visual effects that you don't notice, and that's why I think the visual effects is so good. And then I, of course, see it getting nominated for Best Sound and Best Score. The sound design in this movie is top notch. I know some people usually complain about how Nolan uses his sound in his dialogue and how it's mixed, but I think this is one of his best mixes in one of his movies. You know, I kind of compare it to Oppenheimer, how Oppenheimer was, the dialogue was so loud compared to the other sound effects, and, you know, Tenet, the sound effects were louder than the dialogue. So I think in the Odyssey, you kind of pretty much have a perfect balance, because I understood basically all the dialogue except maybe like the Polyphemus scene. I didn't really understand what he was saying. I don't know if I was supposed to. And then at the end of the Hades scene, one of the crew members saying something on the ship, and it's kind of hard to understand him. But other than that, you can really understand every piece of dialogue. But I loved the sound effects. I really think that they did a great job with that. And then the score by Ludwig Göransson, I think that this is such a good score by him. I don't know if it's going to win, but it'd be crazy if he won, because Ludwig's won like 4 Oscars by now in the last, like, what has it been, like 10 years or so. I don't know how he's done it. He's won for Black Panther, Sinners, Oppenheimer, and then I think there's one more that I'm missing. Maybe he's only won 3 so far. Maybe this will be his 4th, who knows. But on every single rewatch, I love this score more and more. It's so atmospheric, and I just think it's so well realized for him. I know some people think the Oppenheimer score is better. I think there's moments in the Oppenheimer score that I think is better, but as an overall score, I'm really having a better time with this one. I don't know. I just think it fits so well with the movie. And if you've seen this in IMAX, you know how the score is, it's bass boosted. I mean, in some of the sequences, it is really bass boosted because there's one scene where Odysseus is leaving Eumaeus' hut and he's like, Odysseus is like bringing it all, and then the bass just comes in with the score and it just shakes the theater and it just blows at the speakers. I think that's so funny, but the score is so good. And then the last nomination I'm going to talk about, which is very doubtful. I will say I don't think it's going to get a best song nomination. It would be so cool if it did, but I would also love it because I love the Travis Scott song at the end. But I just don't see it happening. I don't think Travis Scott has ever got an Oscar nomination for a movie. He hasn't done that many movie songs except like the Tenet one, which I think is so really good. I love this one, but I don't think it's going to happen, sadly. So yeah, overall, I think the Odyssey is locked up to get 14 Oscar nominations with a small outside chance of it getting 15 or maybe 16. Let me know in the comments how many Oscar nominations you think the Odyssey will get and how many do you think it will win. But that's going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, but I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.